For decades, Sean Diddy Combs was the embodiment of success in the music industry. A self-made mogul, a businessman, a cultural icon. His name was synonymous with power, charisma, and influence. He wasn't just producing music, he was shaping an era. From chart-topping records to fashion runways, from nightclub deals to multi-million-dollar endorsements, Diddy's empire seemed untouchable. But now that carefully crafted image is crumbling. Diddy isn't just facing public backlash, he's fighting for his freedom. In a federal courtroom, the man once known for throwing lavish parties and discovering generational talent stands accused of crimes far darker than anyone could have imagined. Federal prosecutors allege that behind the glitz and glamour, Diddy ran a criminal enterprise built on manipulation, fear, and exploitation. What once looked like opulence is now under the harsh scrutiny of justice. What once seemed like a story of triumph has become a cautionary tale. It began, like so many scandals, with a single voice. Cassandra Ventura, the singer known to the world as Cassie, stepped forward with a lawsuit that sent shockwaves through the industry. She didn't just accuse Diddy of personal abuse, she painted a picture of systemic control, of psychological domination, of a world where power was used as a weapon. Though the lawsuit settled quickly, the details sparked something larger. Federal authorities began to dig, and what they found, according to them, was a carefully maintained illusion covering up years of criminal activity. As the Southern District of New York presented their findings, the allegations deepened. Diddy, they claimed, wasn't just a man with a temper or a controlling partner. He was the ringleader of a tightly coordinated operation designed to exploit women, many of them young, ambitious, and looking for their big break. The prosecution used a term that shook the courtroom: freak-offs. These were not consensual parties, they argued. They were orchestrated encounters, arranged with precision, framed as opportunities but built on coercion. Women, they said, were flown in, sometimes across state lines, often to luxury hotels. They were promised visibility, connections, career moves. What they got instead was something far more sinister. The prosecution alleged that Diddy's team managed everything: transportation, alcohol, narcotics, even the staging of rooms. Lights, cameras, cleanup crews. Every detail was arranged, as if part of a production. Except this wasn't a music video. It was, they claimed, exploitation, wrapped in opulence, normalized by proximity to fame. The courtroom's attention turned to Cassie once again. Her testimony became the emotional backbone of the trial. She spoke with a voice steady but scarred by years of silence. At 19, she was full of ambition. Signed to Bad Boy Records, she thought she'd found a mentor, a partner, someone who saw her potential. But instead of guidance, she said, she found herself pulled into a life she couldn't control. According to her, Diddy decided everything: what she wore, where she went, who she could see. His charisma, she said, masked a darker need for control. She described nights that felt more like assignments than dates. She detailed the freak-offs, not as parties, but as performances she was pressured to endure. And when she resisted, there were consequences: threats, isolation. A reminder that everything she had, her music, her visibility, her career, was tied to him. Even after their romantic relationship ended, she said, the demands didn't. She was expected to comply, to remain silent. When she tried to leave the industry altogether, there were more threats: financial, emotional, sometimes physical. She called it a job, not in the way most of us understand work, but as a condition of survival. As the trial unfolded, more names began to surface. Celebrities once seen alongside Diddy were now footnotes in a darker narrative. Cassie described the jealousy, the rage that flared when she expressed interest in others.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
She told the court that when Diddy learned she'd been speaking to Kid Cudi, he made threats. Vague at first, then more direct. And then something happened that sounded like it came from a movie script. Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway. No injuries, no arrests. But the timing raised eyebrows. The connection, while never legally proven, lingered in the air. It wasn't just about one incident. It was about a pattern of intimidation, of silencing, of reminding people that Diddy was watching and that he could reach them wherever they were. Kid Cudi, real name Scott Mescudi, took the stand. He confirmed his brief relationship with Cassie. He spoke of the tension, of the veiled warnings. He testified about the night someone entered his home. Gifts were unwrapped. His dog, typically roaming free, was locked in a bathroom. Then the car explosion. While Diddy's legal team denied any connection, the mood in the courtroom shifted. This wasn't just a he-said-she-said dispute anymore. It was beginning to look like the unraveling of something much bigger. An empire built not just on business acumen, but on fear. Witnesses began describing what they called the kingdom, a term used behind closed doors referring to the ecosystem around Diddy. His home, his team, his staff, many operated under a strict, unspoken code. Obey, or you're out. One former assistant said they were instructed never to speak unless spoken to never look him in the eye unless acknowledged. One misstep, and you'd be removed. Not just from the house, but from opportunity, from visibility, from a world you thought you were part of. Some of these staffers admitted they stayed silent because they feared for their jobs. Others because they feared for more than that. Former artists and collaborators shared similar stories. They recalled being warned not to ask questions, not to interfere. Harve Pierre, the former president of Bad Boy Records, described meetings where decisions weren't discussed. They were handed down. One woman testified that Diddy kept women assigned to specific rooms, each with a role, a purpose. Cassie, she said, was seen as the moldable one, not because she lacked talent, but because she could be controlled. And when emotions ran high, so did the consequences. Testimonies described violent outbursts, glass shattered, doors kicked in, shouting matches that ended with bruises and silence. Yet somehow, the public never saw it. The press never reported it. Or if they did, it was dismissed as rumor. The machine around Diddy was too powerful, too connected, and perhaps most dangerously, too respected. To help the jury understand how something like this could happen over years, the prosecution brought in Dr. Dawn Hughes, a forensic psychologist. She explained concepts that aren't often talked about in public, terms like trauma bonding, love bombing, coercive control. She said victims don't always run from abuse. Sometimes they rationalize it. Sometimes they're isolated to the point where leaving feels impossible. Sometimes they're financially entangled, emotionally manipulated. She told the court that Cassie's story was textbook coercion, not in the abstract, but in the precise ways it unfolded. Promises followed by punishment, gifts followed by threats, the illusion of choice when there was none. The prosecution's goal wasn't just to convict Diddy, it was to dismantle the myth around him, to show that charisma and charm can hide rot, that wealth and fame don't prevent cruelty, they can amplify it. And yet the defense fought back. They pointed to Diddy's philanthropy, his contributions to music, his investments in black-owned businesses. They suggested Cassie's motivations were financial. They called into question the credibility of witnesses. They tried to frame the story as one-sided, as vengeance dressed up as justice. But public sentiment was shifting. As the trial gained media traction, so did a broader conversation about power. Who has it, who abuses it, and who gets protected by it? More celebrities were mentioned. Usher, Neo, Jimmy Iovine. Not necessarily as participants, but as people who were there. People who may have seen something, said nothing, or benefited from the silence. It raised a question bigger than one man. How many of us look away when someone powerful crosses a line? How many justify it because it's easier to stay close to influence than to challenge it? Outside the courtroom, the world kept turning. Music played, parties continued. But inside, the testimony built like a wave. And with each passing day, the image of Diddy as an untouchable mogul began to crack. Not all that glitters is gold. Sometimes it's something else entirely. This case is far from over. More names may surface. More stories may be told. But what's already been revealed is enough to force an industry to look in the mirror. The fall of a music mogul isn't just a headline. It's a reckoning. For victims silenced by power. For artists lost in the shadows. For anyone who ever thought fame could hide the truth. Now, under oath, with the cameras off and the stakes higher than ever, that truth is finally being heard.